Tyler Herro will be eligible to sign a 3-year extension this October, worth up to $149.7 million. Prospective negotiations between the Miami Heat and their All-Star remain a point of contention among fans and armchair GMs. Really, though, the decision has already been made for the Heat. They need to wait and revisit Herro's future and contract situation next summer. This has little to do with the 25-year-old's value to the team. He is, until further notice, their offensive engine, not only their best playmaker, but someone whose off-ball acumen can unlock doors for everyone else. Instead, this has everything to do with the Heat's prioritization of flexibility and how a handful of recent extensions prove a new deal for Herro won't fit that vision. Don't expect Tyler Herro to accept much less than his max. Extending Herro becomes a borderline no-brainer if he's willing to accept a salary in line with the $31 million and $33 million, respectively, he's making this season and next year. Let's be real, though, that is not going to happen. Mikal Bridges just inked a $150 million extension that is worth slightly less than the max allowed, but that still goes out the full 4 years and pays him an average annual salary of $37.5 million. Herro is younger than him, with a more desirable offensive skill set. De'Aaron Fox, meanwhile, put pen to paper on a 4-year max extension worth an estimated $222.4 million. That's an average annual value of $55.6 million. Herro isn't eligible for the same type of deal, and Fox has the edge as a defender, driver, foul drawer, and maybe passer. But the difference between himself and Herro isn't so stark that the latter and his camp won't use the agreement as a benchmark in negotiations. The Heat are better off waiting on a Herro extension. Let's say Herro is willing to accept an extension that pays him around $40 million per year. That is both reasonable and a contract Miami should avoid for now. The Heat are clearly emphasizing financial malleability in the summers to come. If Andrew Wiggins declines his 2026-27 player option, they could have $30+ million in cap space next offseason. If he sticks around, Miami as of now would have him, Herro, and Davion Mitchell all coming off the books in the summer of 2027. Bam Adebayo would be the only significant commitment on the balance sheet. Free agency isn't what it used to be, but if there's any team that can fly in the face of convention, it's the Heat. Plus, cap space can be used for trades, in addition to free agent signings. So much of that flexibility goes out the window if Miami extends Herro's current deal. What's more, because he can't sign an agreement until October, he wouldn't become trade eligible before next offseason. That isn't the end of the world, but it's a crucial detail for a Heat franchise still obsessed with acquiring Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sure, he may not become available this summer or during the season. Even then, Herro may have more appeal in prospective talks as a young star on an expiring contract, rather than someone already sharpened in for a certain amount of money. Miami can revisit this stance if Herro is willing to take something like 3 years and $100 million in an extension. Failing that, there is no decision to make. Extending Herro this fall doesn't currently fit the Heat's long-term plan. The Miami Heat are set to embark on the 2025-26 campaign in one of the more awkward positions in the NBA. The Heat don't have a roster elite enough to make a genuine run in the playoffs in 2026, but it isn't in a rebuilding mode and would need a Dallas Mavericks-like miracle to land a top pick in the 2026 draft. So it's with that in mind, what would actually constitute a failure for Miami's season in 2025-26? One scenario would be a nightmare for the Heat. Slowly but surely, the Heat are assembling some pieces that one can convince themselves can gel and be a squad that is a sum of its parts rather than being reliant on a true star. Most Heat fans would probably view a stronger showing in the first round of the playoffs as a success, and one could build a narrative that Miami would be ready to take the next step, with one splash signing in next year's free agency. Conversely, if the season went south, one could argue for entering a seller's market and acquiring a premium draft pick that they haven't had in quite some time. However, if you want to argue that one scenario would constitute 2025-26 as a failure, it would be a repeat of how 2024-25 ended. Miami won their play-in games to make the playoffs, and then were ceremoniously dumped by Cleveland in 4 games. Given the turmoil of the season and how the roster was constructed, it was expected, and not too many people batted an eye. However, as Miami continues to build its youth movement, the Heat have to show growth in 2025 to 26. With Tyler Herro's contract extension acting as a looming backdrop, combined with Bam Adebayo getting a pay bump in 2026, and combined with Kel'el Ware being the chosen one as trade talks swirled this offseason, a repeat season of getting knocked out of the first round in a sweep would be a disaster. Because in the NBA, you either need to be moving up the standings or you need to bottom out and reset. Being stuck on the hamster wheel leads nowhere long-term. The Miami Heat continue to value financial flexibility above overspending to increase their chances of competing for a championship. They're projected to generate over $80 million in cap space next summer and are looking to make a big splash. The franchise remains under the first apron but nearly $1.4 million above the luxury tax. The Heat wish to get under that as well and would need to cut salary from the roster. It's been reported the Heat are considering waiving forward Simone Fontecchio to accomplish this financial goal. He was acquired as part of the Duncan Robinson sign-and trade to the Detroit Pistons. The Italian native enters his 4th year in the league if he remains on the roster. Fontecchio averaged 5.9 points, 2.9 rebounds, shot 40.2% from the field, and 33.5% from three-point range in 75 games with the Pistons last season. He would make a strong impact on the Heat offensively, but is set to make $8.3 million next year. The undrafted veteran is currently under trade restriction until September 9th, so the front office can't simply ship him away to cut salary. If the franchise were to waive and stretch Fontecchio's contract, they would get under the luxury tax. The strategy would also help them avoid the repeater luxury tax, which applies to teams that have been above it in 4 consecutive seasons. The Heat have until August 28th to utilize the stretch provision.